So yesterday I got 2 calls and a voicemail message from a random number from New Hampshire. I was in class, so I didn't pick it up, but being from New Hampshire, I figured it was someone I knew whose number I didn't. So after I got out of class, I listened to the voicemail and heard only rustling, leading one to believe it was what I affectionately refer to as an ass dial. But I was still curious as to whether the person actually knew me or not, so I called the guy back, and I said that I had received multiple calls from that number, and you know what he did? He denied it. He said no. And then he hung up on me. I tried to convince myself the other day that I don't like vlogging. It didn't really work out. I wanted to write something for YouTube, but I was feeling kind of uninspired and fed up, so I decided to write about how I don't actually enjoy making video blogs. A common thing in mathematical proofs is to start by assuming that what you're trying to prove is false, and then going through a series of logical steps to demonstrate that making that assumption leads to a contradiction, and therefore what you're trying to prove is actually true. I started by assuming that because I was feeling uninspired to write for YouTube, that I don't actually enjoy writing for YouTube, and I then proceeded to start writing about how I didn't like YouTube, which led me to become inspired to write for YouTube, which led me to a contradiction because I actually do kind of enjoy sitting in front of a camera and just talking about stuff and seeing if anyone cares. But I did come to the conclusion that there are a lot of things that I don't like about YouTube, and in particular a lot of things that I don't like about the video blogging community on YouTube. Like any community of creative people, it consists largely of people who aren't very good, dominated by a few people who are very good, very successful, and very popular, and whose work most of the not-so-good people try to imitate. It's the same thing with music on YouTube. There are lots of people who make music, a smaller number of people who consider themselves musicians, a still smaller number of people who have enough skill to make music that's actually enjoyable, and an infinitesimal number of people who make enjoyable music while simultaneously remaining personable and likable. I also concluded that, if the most popular video bloggers are any metric of what makes a successful video blogger, the 2 defining characteristics that predict success are radicalism and wackiness. You have to be radical enough to think outside the box and do something that people haven't seen before, but you also have to be wacky enough so that people will pay attention to you despite the fact that you're doing something they haven't seen before and don't know why they should pay attention to. For that reason, I now acknowledge that I'm never going to be successful on YouTube. Because while I might be radical about some things, I'm moderate to a fault about pretty much everything people want to hear about. And there just isn't enough conflict in my life for my opinion videos to be truly engaging. And while I can be wacky, most of the time I'm just too lazy, or don't see the point. I go through this same process with writing and programming from time to time. I don't feel like working on anything, so I naturally assume that it's not something I actually enjoy doing. Because if I did, then wouldn't I want to work on things all the time? But it's apparent when you look at the past 10 years of my life that I evidently do want to work on this sort of thing basically all the time, because hardly a day has gone by in half my life when I haven't done or thought about one of these 2 things. Even during my summer-long hiatus, I still thought about vlogging relatively frequently. I just didn't have the motivation to actually go and do it. But now that I know it's pointless, I can do it because I want to do it, and not in pursuit of some ill-defined and probably unattainable goal of eventual success. So that's my message for today. Do stuff because you want to. And as always, have a nice whatever.